Hey everyone, it's Kong again with another episode of Should You Summon. As always, I'm going to be presenting high-level overviews to help you decide whether this banner is worth your hard-earned vouchers and crystals. This week we've got the return of the Wandering Duelist on a raid-up banner alongside Omega. The banner will run from February 9th to the 22nd, and as a raid-up banner, you have a 40% chance to get either featured hero, with the remaining 20% reserved for any off-banner in the regular summoning pool. Let's just get started with Omega. Omega is an assassin whose effectiveness is based on his skill stat. Surprise Attack allows you to ignore guard if your skill is double that of your target, and bypass troops entirely to attack the hero directly if your skill is triple. His talent also lets you teleport back to where you initiated your action and then move 1 to 3 more spaces if you killed your target, making him a great hit-and-run unit, provided you can secure the kill. He also gets a pretty decent casting passive during the upcoming Trials collab, which gives him plus 10% skill, and when he uses a skill to enter combat, he gets increased soldier range and plus 10% hero damage. It's a boost he actually needs, since every hero in the game keeps getting buffs to skill with Covenant stats and casting. It kinda leads them to outpacing his requirement to double or triple them, so this is a nice boost. He's a member of Dark Reincarnation, buffed by Bozil and Licorice, and Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida and Epsilon. For bonds, he unlocks the defensive bond for Gizaroth and the attack bond for Epsilon. For his own bonds, he needs Sigma for his defensive bond and Lambda for his attack bond. For content, in PvE, Omega is pretty solid for trivializing a lot of the run-of-the-mill PvE stuff like story, time rifts, timeless trials, some challenges, covenant battles, and single-target dimensional expedition battles. While this makes him useful against normal enemies, it also means he's not the greatest at long fights against bulky bosses. So even though his factions give him a boost in certain Eternal Temple or Ancient Beckoning fights, he's not really worth fielding there. On the PvP side, one problem for Omega is that players can just build their characters to pass his skill thresholds. So whether he can secure most kills is kind of out of your hands. Recent stat inflation also puts him at a bit of a disadvantage, and if players know they don't have an answer to him, they'll just ban him earlier. There are a lot more must-ban units now though, so maybe you'll get him out against an unprepared opponent, in which case, enjoy. Moving right along to the Wandering Duelist. Wandering Duelist is a physical DPS whose kit is built around her revenge mechanic. When an ally dies, the enemy who killed them gets a permanent debuff that makes her do more damage to them. The two main downsides of this talent are that it's reactive, it requires an ally to die, and if she doesn't trigger the debuff, she basically has no talent. She can mitigate this problem a little bit through her skills. She has a 1-cost skill that puts a weaker, temporary version of her talent debuff on 2 enemies before letting her move 2 more spaces and take another action. Her 3-cost skill is a single target attack that also gives her a passive once per battle revive. After you use this attack, every enemy with her debuff gets heal blocked. She also has a separate 2-cost attack that similarly affects every talent debuffed enemy with passive block, so she does have a couple of semi-global debuffing options. Her unique armor basically just gives her a bunch of damage reduction when she initiates battle, further cementing her role as someone whose job is to massacre an enemy for free after the opponent opens a trade. The problems with this kit should immediately be obvious. She has average to slightly below average range, she doesn't ignore guard, her whole talent is either dormant until an ally is already dead, or until she uses a whole other skill to activate it. She's a member of Origins of Light, buffed by Dehart, Jugler, and Freya, Meteor Strike, buffed by Zerida and Epsilon, and Yeles Legends, buffed by Landius and Sigma. For bonds, she doesn't currently unlock anyone else's bonds, and she needs Werner for her own defensive bond and Mariandel for her attack bond. Basically the new versions of the characters that Omega needed. For content, in PvE, she's on faction for Phoenix, Scylla, and Valkyrie in the Eternal Temple, and Jormungandr and Nidhogg in Ancient Beckoning. You don't really want your allies to die against bosses? Maybe you could sacrifice a summon or something, but again, that's changing your whole strategy up to get a decent damage boost for one unit. She'll be fine in general purpose PvE though. On the PvP side, Even in a pure trade game where you can expect an opponent to run in and kill one of your units, Her whole talent is designed to help you get a one-shot kill against that unit. And shouldn't your other units be able to secure that kill anyway? Especially if you're in a single target trade box. In other words, replacing a competent one-shot DPS who can maybe ignore guard or zone out a lot of territory in exchange for a relatively more limited brawler doesn't seem worth it. For availability, she will actually be coming back in late June as part of the Valentine's Day trade-in event, so she'll be on a raid-up banner with the King of the Red Moon. That means if you have 50 King of the Red Moon shards or 50 Wandering Duelist shards, you will have the potential to make some trades for extra shards at that event. These Valentine's trade-in events are not new by now, so if you've been around for the past few years, you know how they work. If you haven't, then go check out one of my past Valentine episodes, or just wait till the one coming up and I'll explain it in more detail then. Alright, let's move on to the notes for noobs. Omega is the kind of unit that's good at a very specific thing. He's niche, but not essential for new players. For some reason, I do see a surprising number of newer players in the community hyper-focus on getting him to, quote, make PvE easy. But PvE's already easy, especially if you have a decent team composition. So your tank, your healer, your faction buffer, those guys are going to be more important to you than Omega. Plus, he needs you to really go out of your way to unlock his bonds, so you'll be fine without him. Wandering Duelist is an underwhelming unit overall. Her unique gear didn't really help her much. She's still skippable. Finally, just my reminder about upcoming banners. And rather than keep repeating my whole spiel about upcoming banners in every video, I'm going to do that whole summary in the main major update headliner episode, so this month was the Leobec and Theon episode. But these smaller weekly episodes, I'm just going to start to mention any upcoming banners that might be pertinent to these specific heroes. So the main point to mention here is that none of their bond unlockers, Sigma, Werner, Lambda, and Mariandel, are coming back on any banners before July at the earliest. Yikes. It does make summoning these characters fresh a little bit less appealing. Anyway, that's it for this episode, so thank you so much for watching. I'll catch you in the next Should You Summon. Extra special thanks, of course, to our Langrisser tier channel members for generously supporting the channel directly. Shout out to Levitt, Derek, Kate Soon, Jared Portela, Jerome Meyer, Harambe, and Shara Ilaimirius.